critical test for presidential candidates. Super Tuesday could make or break some campaigns.
I'm Jason Calvi on the campaign trail. I'll bring you to this event with Senator Marco Rubio coming up.
A Navy SEAL is awarded America's Medal of Honor, how he finds strength in his Catholic faith. And Academy Award winner, as the film Spotlight documents past abuse, how the church is addressing it. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, February 29th, 2016. Good evening, thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick, and we are just hours away from a critical test for presidential candidates. More states vote on Super Tuesday than at any other point in the primaries. Donald Trump is expected to extend his lead, winning a majority of Tuesday's Republican votes. That despite criticism for deflecting questions about the Ku Klux Klan. The Anti-Defamation League calls on Trump to reject the support of former Grand Wizard David Duke.
I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
Trump later tweeted that he does reject the support of the former Klan leader. Meanwhile, Trump gets his first endorsement from a sitting U.S. senator. Alabama Republican Jeff Sessions says Trump's campaign is creating a movement across America. Sessions is known for his opposition to illegal immigration, and that is one of Trump's key campaign issues.
At this time in Americans' history, we need to make America great again.
Senator Sessions' home state of Alabama is one of 11 states with primaries tomorrow on Super Tuesday. Texas Senator Ted Cruz admits his rival Trump will be hard to stop if he, quote, steamrolls through Super Tuesday.
65% of Republican primary voters nationwide recognize that Donald Trump is not the right candidate to go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton in November, that if we nominate Donald Trump, Hillary in all likelihood becomes the next president, and that would be absolutely disastrous for this country.
With a sense of urgency, Florida Senator Marco Rubio ramps up his attacks on GOP frontrunner Donald Trump. Jason Calvi catches up with Rubio at Patrick Henry College. That Virginia evangelical school is linked with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association.
The last Catholic in the race comes out to the music of Christian group Mercy Me. Rubio also comes out swinging against Donald Trump, the winner of the past 3 contests.
Media is almost like now portraying him as this unstoppable force. Two-thirds of Republicans vote against this guy, and they're like, oh, he's got it all wrapped up.
Rubio also challenged this heckler.
Marco Rubio, empty suit. My suit wasn't made in China. It's not a Trump suit.
Rubio is fighting to stay in the race. Donald Trump is leading recent polls in most Super Tuesday states, and Senator Ted Cruz is ahead in his home state of Texas. Former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli is here to promote Cruz. Cruz argued 9 cases at the Supreme Court.
Democrats voted to give him awards for how good a job he did in the Supreme Court. Not a lot of people know that. So,
But he still lost. I mean, he still lost the majority of the cases at the court.
He won cases no one else was winning, like the 10 Commandments are in front of the state capitol in Texas.
But Rubio is winning endorsements, more than his Republican rivals combined. 4 governors and 20 members of Congress, including Representative Barbara Comstock.
Virginia is a swing state, and Marco has already demonstrated that he is a strong, common-sense conservative.
In hours, we'll know if Rubio can prove the polls wrong. In Virginia, Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Jason. As Rubio, Trump, and Cruz duke it out for Republican votes, Democrats may wrap things up soon. A new nationwide survey shows Hillary Clinton leading in several key Super Tuesday states. Wyatt Goolsby joins us from Northern Virginia, where he's covering Clinton's last-minute push for votes. Wyatt?
Brian, Hillary Clinton heads into Super Tuesday with a big boost thanks to a win in South Carolina on Saturday. Supporters here at George Mason University are hoping she can keep that momentum up. They're here at this rally. We've been speaking to them this afternoon about a shift in momentum with what they can tell from this campaign, a shift from a focus on whether she could win the nominee to whether she could win the general election.
What we need is to get some things done, and for you to do that is to be able to work across the aisle, and she's done that. She's proven that as a senator and also when she was Secretary of State. So I believe that that's, really important.
I think that Hillary is she's be more stronger for the country future.
Hillary really has a lot of foreign service experience, serving as Secretary of State, and her career has just been a great one. We like Bernie too, but we love Hillary more.
Hillary Clinton's supporters have good reason to feel confident. According to a CNN ORC poll, Clinton leads Bernie Sanders 55 to 38% nationally, and she does even better in Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee, where an NBC News Wall Street Journal Marist poll shows Clinton leading nearly 2-1.
And I need your help. I need your help to go and vote tomorrow, to bring people to vote with you.
Within the last 48 hours, Clinton has been crisscrossing the country, from a church service in Nashville to a Clinton home crowd in Arkansas and a rally this morning in Massachusetts. Meanwhile,
to do everything that I can.
Bernie Sanders has been to Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas trying to rally support. While Sanders says he got killed in the South Carolina primary, he says his campaign has one bright spot.
The only positive thing for us is we won the 29 years of age and younger vote, and that was good.
Sanders continues to target states where he thinks he can gain an advantage, but he faces an uphill battle.
Now, this Democratic race has been somewhat more cordial after Clinton's win on Saturday. You can tell at today's rally and in some of the other rallies she attended earlier today that she has been focused somewhat on Donald Trump, even taking a stab at his slogan saying, quote, "We don't need to make America great again. America has never stopped being great." Brian?
Wyatt Goolsby, thank you. We will have complete Super Tuesday coverage tomorrow. Political Director Lauren Ashburn reports from D.C. with Jason Calvi in Alabama, and Wyatt will be there in Virginia. Watch EWTN News Nightly tomorrow. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. President Obama awards the nation's highest military honor to a Navy SEAL. He participated in a daring 2012 raid to rescue an American hostage in Afghanistan. Lauren Ashburn reports from the White House.
Edward Byers is the 11th living service member to receive the Medal of Honor for actions in Afghanistan. He was joined here at the White House by his mother and family. Senior Chief Ed Byers rescued an American doctor from the clutches of the Taliban.
Ed leapt across the room and threw himself on the hostage, using his own body to shield him from the bullets. Another enemy fighter appeared, and with his body, Ed kept shielding the hostage.
The Medal of Honor is given to armed forces personnel who distinguish themselves by risking their lives above and beyond the call of duty. President Obama extended a welcome to Byers' whole family, including his mother.
We also welcome Ed's mom, Peggy, who I understand had one question when Ed told her about this ceremony. "Do you think I can come?" That's so sweet. Yes, Mom, you're allowed to come.
After the ceremony, Byers remembered fellow SEAL Officer Nick Check, who died in the raid.
He was an American hero, and he was a hero of that operation. He was killed during that operation. He died a warrior, and he died to bring back another American. And I believe our nation owes him a debt of gratitude.
Byers says he plans to continue serving as a Navy SEAL. In an interview with the Washington Post, Byers, who is Catholic, says he drew strength from praying to St. Michael the Archangel. Brian?
Lauren, thank you. A suicide bombing at a funeral north of Baghdad kills at least 38 people and wounds dozens more. Security officials say a local leader of the powerful Shiite militia was killed in the attack. Security in that area is largely maintained by state-sanctioned Shiite militias. Hospital officials confirmed the updated death toll. All spoke on condition of anonymity. They are not authorized to brief the media. A bombing at a Baghdad market on Sunday by the Islamic State group killed 73 people. The UN Secretary General says a cessation of hostilities in Syria is holding by and large. Both sides in the conflict have pointed to repeated violations since the agreement took effect Friday at midnight. Still, Ban Ki-moon says he wants the truce extended beyond the initial planned duration of 2 weeks. He confirms receiving a letter from the High Negotiations Committee, the main umbrella opposition group. It urged the UN to specify the territory covered by the truce to prevent hostilities in designated inclusion zones. Moderates win a majority in Iran's parliament and a top clerical body that picks the next supreme leader. This is a major blow to hardliners in the first election since last summer's nuclear agreement with world powers. Reformists who favor expanded social freedoms and engagement with the West won at least 85 seats. Moderate conservatives won 73. That gives the two camps a majority in the 290-seat assembly, and it holds hardliners to just 68 seats. Here in the U.S., Super Tuesday is upon us. There are more primaries tomorrow than at any other time in the campaign for president. We have Al Weaver, campaign reporter for the Washington Examiner, with us, along with Star Parker, founder and president of CURE, the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. Starting with you, Star, what does Hillary Clinton's win in South Carolina mean in regards to the minority vote especially?
Well, blacks have always been very loyal, and when Clinton started going into the churches and shored up all of the black leaders, it was a shoo-in for her at that point. So what it really means is that Republicans are going to have to make sure they have the right candidate to go against her if they really want to be successful in November.
We're hearing a lot that Clinton is pretty much on the road to victory. Is this the beginning of the end for Mr. Sanders?
Well, we'll see. He has to have a good output on Super Tuesday. He needs to actually show that he can win some states. I mean, the momentum is certainly with Hillary Clinton after her landslide win in South Carolina, but he needs to pick up some states on Super Tuesday in order to have a chance and build some momentum so he can actually take this all the way to possibly a convention.
As another old guy, I can say this. He's a pretty old guy, and he says he got the vote of 29 and younger. Why?
Yeah, well, they like him. They really like him. They really the one thing that resonates big time is when he talks about free tuition for college for in-state students.
Yeah,
that's really a big deal for them.
It is. Those youth have bought into this idea that it's okay to steal other people's money, and so they want you to take some money and help them pay for their college, ensure that they'll have a job, and. As long as we don't have a moral compass and most people are unchurched in that demographic, they're going to want somebody to take care of them.
Speaking of moral compass, what about this KKK endorsement, or former Grand Wizard of the KKK endorsing Trump? That is troubling, especially for Christians, right?
Well, it hasn't been troubling lately. It just started making the news because David Duke gave his endorsement to Donald Trump some 6 months ago, right after he decided that he was going to bid. But what happened over the last few days is he's being very aggressive on his radio show, David Duke, and therefore getting his supporters to come out and support Trump. But this is the first time. I mean, they're at Trump rallies, even in California, as you saw, while they're at the same time rallying for Trump, the KKK, they have the Confederate flag, and they're making sure that they use it against protesters. They actually stabbed a few people with it.
Do you think Cruz and Rubio can capitalize on this? Do you think that's going to affect Trump's numbers, or he seems to deflect just about everything?
I doubt it will. I mean, there's been a lot of things that you thought were going to affect Trump's numbers, whether it was him going after John McCain or him going after Megyn Kelly or a whole swath of things that he's talked about. Nothing's affected them at all. So I'd be very skeptical to think that this could help Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio in any way. But I will say, I don't think this is something Donald Trump wants people talking about.
No, he doesn't. In fact, this is the first time that he's not politically incorrect, that he actually issued I'm distancing myself from him. So we'll see what happens.
Star Parker and Al Weaver will be up to date or catching up with you after the primary, see how things change there. We appreciate both of you being with us tonight.
You're welcome.
Coming up, Cardinal Pell admits mistakes by the church, how he's responding to allegations of abuse. And Hollywood captured a dark chapter in church history. What's happened in the years since the setting of Spotlight?
Nei compromessi con I poteri del mondo.
Pope Francis says we are not saved by political parties, nor power or wealth. He says salvation comes from the small and simple things of God. The Holy Father at his homily during Mass this morning at the Vatican's Santa Marta residence where he lives. Thanks for joining us on this Leap Day, the 29th of February, a Monday. Australian Cardinal George Pell testifies from Rome before the Royal Commission. That's an Australian panel investigating the abuse of minors by clergy. Pell is being asked to provide any evidence into his knowledge of child sex abuse in 2 dioceses where he served as a priest. Our producer, Mary Shovlain, joining us from Rome tonight. Mary, what came out of the first round of hearings today?
Good evening, Brian. Cardinal Pell conceded during these hearings that the Catholic Church made enormous mistakes in dealing with child sexual abuse in his country and of course, worldwide. He said that a lot of these failures were personal failures versus failures of the church structure. He pointed out how the Australian church put practices in place some 20 years ago, and in that sense, they're ahead of the game. But he said, I'm not here to defend the indefensible, which is, of course, the sexual abuse of minors. He pointed out that, who he knew and when he knew it to the best of his ability. These questions are ongoing, and we expect them to continue, of course, over the next few days.
What other topics might come up during this week, these next few days?
Well, at the end of the questioning, they got into specific cases, specific priests. A famous convicted sexual felon who's a priest who has been laicized, of course, and has been in jail. They started asking him questions about Father Ridsdale, and who is, of course, serving a sentence. And so they're getting more into the specific cases now. As soon as they started talking about Father Ridsdale, Cardinal Pell shared what he knew, which of course wasn't much. He's being as open and as transparent as he can be. So I think from now going forward over the next few days, they're going to go after it case by case. Did you know this priest? Did you know what he was doing? And when did you know it?
All right, Mary Shovlain keeping us up to date on very important hearings going on between Australia and the Vatican, where Cardinal Pell is. We appreciate you being our eyes and ears there in Rome, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Spotlight, a film dealing with the church's sex abuse crisis, wins top honors at the 88th Academy Awards. Catherine Szeltner reports the drama tackles a critical issue, but doesn't tell the whole story.
Spotlight.
Spotlight takes center stage at the 2016 Oscars, winning Best Picture.
You're going to give me the names and the names of their victims. Are you threatening me?
The drama chronicles the Boston Globe's investigative reporting into the 2002 church sex abuse crisis, when 87 Boston priests were accused of abuse.
I am here because I care. We're going to tell this story. We're going to tell it right.
The movie tells us a very painful story, but also a necessary one.
A spokesperson for the U.S. bishops says it's important to be transparent, but the 2-hour film doesn't show how the church actively fights abuse. Every U.S. diocese has a victim coordinator. Church workers are required to get background checks. Seminarians are psychologically screened, and there's a zero-tolerance policy. A priest active in preventing child abuse explains.
If a priest is known to have sexually molested a minor, he will never minister as a priest again. And this is the fact. There's no priest in this country who's molested a minor that we know of who's in ministry. And number two, mandatory reporting.
The filmmakers say the movie, the award, is not for them.
This film gave a voice to survivors, and this Oscar amplifies that voice.
It's a voice both Hollywood and the church want to raise.
It took the silence of an entire community for Spotlight to happen. We don't want this happen again. We all should be vigilant. We should all participate.
The Vatican newspaper dedicated 2 articles today to Spotlight, praising the film for showing the profound pain over the sex abuse crisis. The U.S. bishops say if this film triggers any memories for abuse survivors, reach out to your local diocese. There is someone dedicated to helping with the healing process. Brian.
An important reminder. Thank you, Catherine. An obvious lack of diversity is a major theme at the Academy Awards, with no black actors even nominated. Host Chris Rock made the most of it.
It's the 88th Academy Awards, which means this whole no black nominees thing has happened at least 71 other times.
Rock then referred to the Academy Awards as the White People's Choice Awards. The Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences president promises reforms leading to more diversity. Up next, we preview a critical Supreme Court case affecting abortion clinics across the country. And return from space, an astronaut prepares to end a year-long human experiment. Thanks for joining us this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick, and for the first time in 10 years, Justice Clarence Thomas asks a question during a Supreme Court hearing. Today's case could place new limits on a federal law that bans people convicted of domestic violence from owning guns. Thomas asked the lawyer defending the government's position if violating any other law suspends a person's constitutional rights. Well, President Obama says he will not use an abortion litmus test when nominating a Supreme Court justice. Our Lauren Ashburn pressed White House spokesman Josh Earnest on this issue. She questions the president's claim since a pro-abortion nominee would tip the critical balance on the high court.
I think I have shied quite a ways away from predicting outcomes on the Supreme Court. And I certainly wouldn't speculate on how those outcomes would be changed by a nominee that the president hasn't named yet.
And this week, the High Court takes up the most significant abortion case it's heard in nearly a quarter century. Wednesday, oral arguments are presented on the Texas law requiring abortionists to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. Clinics must also meet the same standards as ambulatory surgical centers. Dr. David Osteen is Executive Director of National Right to Life, and Texas Right to Life has been involved in this. Opponents argue that the sole purpose of this is to restrict abortion. Is there more to it than that?
Certainly is. The law had three parts. One part was to prohibit abortion after 20 weeks when the unborn child could feel pain. The other two parts dealt with requiring that the abortionist have admitting privileges at a hospital and that the clinic itself have the same standard of care and fit the same standards as other outpatient ambulatory surgical centers. Now, we've seen cases, we had a recent case in Maryland where a woman died following a late-term abortion, and the abortionist was in another state when she went to the hospital. Obviously, had he been there, had he been able to go to the hospital with her, admit her, and say, here's what I did, here's what may have gone wrong, perhaps that life could have been saved. And you've got to wonder just how bad some of these abortionists are.
Well, Gosnell's case certainly points that out, right?
That's right. If they can't get admitting privileges at a hospital, just how substandard are some of these clinics if they can't fit the same standards of other surgical centers?
Dr. Osteen, what arguments do you expect to be presented on Wednesday?
Well, the key is whether or not the court will use the same undue burden standard as it did in the Casey case. If it holds to that standard, we believe that the law will be upheld. But if it doesn't hold to that standard, it'll essentially become a national medical legislature.
Depending on Judge Kennedy, probably, this could be a 4-4 tie without Justice Scalia. Do you expect that to happen?
That could certainly happen. And if that happens, it will uphold the Texas law. But since what it will do is uphold the Fifth Circuit decision, it will not be binding on the other states. On the other hand, if the law is struck down, that would be binding.
Interesting. So you expect a possible tie, which would be good news for Texas, but not necessarily beyond that.
That's correct.
All right, Dr. David Osteen, we appreciate you joining us from National Right to Life. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we hear for the first time from a University of Virginia student being held in North Korea. Otto Warmborough cried during a videotaped news conference released by the regime. He's accused of trying to steal a political banner from a hotel.
I have made the worst mistake of my life, but please, act to save me. Please, think of my family.
It's not clear if Warmborough was forced to speak. North Korea claims that news conference was held at his own request. And after nearly a year in space, American astronaut Scott Kelly is about to come home. Kelly and Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko served as test subjects on the International Space Station. Through them, scientists studied the effects of space travel on the human body. It's part of NASA's goal to make sure astronauts can handle a trip to Mars. Kelly returns to Texas on Wednesday, having now spent more cumulative time in space than any American in history. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. We leave you tonight with this meeting between Pope Francis and the Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. We're told they discussed promoting peace and Christian unity.